magnificent. Good morning, Colonel, sir. Fine bright today. I hear down at the village, prices is picking up, and it's a big year for cotton.
And heroic, a charismatic superstar who leapt on the screen. Men wanted to be like him and women wanted to be with him. But in real life, he was complicated, longing for recognition as both an actor and writer. Devilishly handsome and charming, he was a risk-taker who flouted society's conventions and inevitably landed in trouble. For him, life was a series of adventures. Making movies was one of them.
Me? Sure, I'm decent.
Well, this is Colonel Braxton Beauregard Burlique'S the Fifth, adventurer, treasure hunter, swashbuckler extraordinaire, at your service, madam. Well, today's talk is going to be on part 3 of Military Review's Champagne Decal scam. In this particular episode, the Military Review boy is interviewing this Kelly Hicks character, who's the author of the SS Steel books. That's his first edition. I have the second edition, but I'll tell you what, I mislaid it here in the Manor House, and like I said in my other video, I ended up with 2 copies of this goddamn book by this Ken whatever, I can't pronounce that. And he turned out to be a fraudster from what we understand from Military Review's video. But in this here video, we have Kelly Hicks being interviewed, and it's a lengthy video. I'm going to kind of skip through it here. We'll start.
Of the fact that you should always hear both sides of the story, and
yes, and you should. That's why it's great that he came on here
and agreed to talk with us on the subject. So it is very important to hear both sides of the story and for people to draw their own conclusions. So without any further ado, let's get into the discussion.
Yes.
Kelly, thank you.
Oh, incidentally, this is this is from the Kennedy-Nixon debate from 1960. That's Military Review is casting himself as JFK, and there's Nixon, I believe, over there. If I remember, I might be mixing the boys up, but anyway, well, let's continue.
Again, for taking time to be here, so we'll just run through some.
There's that son of a bitch. I mean, I'm trying to be objective, but here's this boy. He thought that he was the cat's meow. Look at him there with the helmet. He's got gloves on. I wonder if that helmet's fake or real. I don't know, but anyway, let's keep going.
Questions that I think that everyone has had a lot of interest in. So we'll start off. We'll start off with sort of the bigger one. Do you still believe now that the Champagne runes are
very good question.
Our period sort of decal?
First of all, thanks, Mike, for having me on, and I appreciate this opportunity a lot. So it's really great to be here. No, thank you. Yeah. I do not believe they're original.
Well, gee whiz! Isn't that something?
I categorically don't. So
oh, you categorically don't.
I just want to make that real clear. I do want to just slightly touch on how I came to think they were.
Yeah, this is something I'd be interested to.
Well, I would too.
Sort of trajectory where you went from understanding them as original to where we are today.
Well, yeah, and well, there was that sudden stop at the trajectory end also. So, but yes, so as I had mentioned when we were just chatting a little bit, I started collecting in the '60s, and I had 20 or 30 helmets by the time I was about 10 and a half years old. mostly Lufts and things like that, and armies and so forth. A couple of really good ringers, but overall, I was learning helmets for decades, and while I was in it,
Well, anyway,
as a passion, sort of on and off,
you know
my
what?
point is, as I was doing this discovery of helmets through the years, I was seeing these, and I saw them in collections of, if you can think of a major collector,
Well, they could have been fake.
they had one. And
I think the
because
lesson
it
is you
wasn't
can't,
internet
just because you
and so
see
forth.
something in a collection doesn't mean it's real.
So what I discovered was I would go to these dealers, these big names, and I would say, how do you tell this, or what's the, why does this look like this? And I always felt like I got part of an answer, or sort of I don't know, and there was even a nuance between sort of the M35 ET and the ET. I felt like if you're manufacturing helmets,
Yes. There's the book.
gave a roadmap to collectors.
That was the latest
Gamers
edition of his
aside, but gave a
goddamn book.
roadmap for other helmets, and why would you see a CA poker on a certain helmet and not on another, and things like that. I sort of explained that out. And
I mean, yes, but
see them as originally.
he's going through his background, and it's more to me self-serving for him than it is for us. Yes, he saw helmets in collections, and he noticed different nuances. But if you're studying fakes and you think they're real, then you're going to end up with fakes like we end up here in this here book of his. But I'm going to kind of move it along, and we'll get more to the meat of the matter.
Let's just say 1990 to 2004. We'll give it that time period.
yeah, sure.
How did it move? Obviously there was the big sort of movement in between 2004 to about, I think, 2014, where they sort of went from controversial to then being on the nose, and then to sort of debunked at the end. So from your side, would you mind describing how that sort of period went?
Yeah,
Not
sure.
well for him.
So for me, Doug Bueller did his analysis.
See?
And
Doug Bueller, he's the one who upset his apple cart.
pretty much black and white with a lot of examples of spray painted types of things, was when the notion of a champagne
Look at this.
is a serious question.
Look at this. This was his website. He's selling these here helmets. Can you imagine giving him $23,000? And it's fake. A fraud. A phony. See, now you understand why the boy didn't want to fess up, and want to be real on what was going on here. I mean, he's making a hell of a lot of money if you look at all this money that he was making. Look at that. But let's continue.
And then sort of toppled over and crumbled. And I did want to say, well, I'll just say it this way. When it crumbled,
Crumbled.
so I was pretty proud of what I had done. I had written 2 SS Steels.
Oh, you're proud of that.
Collaborated with the late Mike Beaver, a dear friend of mine, on his book. I had been advising all sorts of folks all over the hobby about their helmets, doing my utmost to...
Yeah, but he wasn't doing any scientific analysis of the materials that these helmets were made and painted with, He didn't do anything like Bueller did.
look for techniques and methodologies to detect fakes, to try to preserve the hobby from being invaded by fakes. And I was pretty proud of myself, and I had become a little bit arrogant, I guess.
Yes, you did.
When
I'd see the boy, he'd be standing there like his crap doesn't stink. He'd have his nose up in the air, and he's got all these helmets around, and, he's selling the books, and, he didn't really he didn't pay much attention to a broken down old Southern gentleman like myself walking through the aisles, looking, to get some information, perhaps add to my collection. But you see, I wasn't buying any of these $23,000 helmets. But anyway, let the boy continue.
Doug said these things are fake, I was very dismissive of that at first. I really was.
He was dismissive.
I didn't know how to feel, but...
Well, I know how I feel.
When you're dedicated to your work...
That's
somebody
one.
who thought the
I
world
have
was
that
round.
one too.
Galileo came along and said, nope, it's round. Right? So you have
Yeah, but why would it be like it's Galileo? You used no scientific methods. You just went by, well, I started collecting when I was a boy in the 1960s, and I would see these helmets in these big-time collector collections, so I thought they were real. So he was studying like he was trying to say he's a master of these paintings, these masterpiece paintings. Oh, I'm an expert. And it turns out he was studying a bunch of fakes, phonies, frauds. And then he says he's an expert.
It's hard to swallow because
Yes, it is.
You put an extreme amount of time into, and someone who came out and said it's complete obvious. Opposite.
Well, yes, but Bueller used science.
But over time, I mean, it. So my credo has always been, my ethos is to be honest and to treat people decently, like I would want to be treated.
Well, we can talk about that later.
And whoever ever bought one of those from, wasn't that terribly many, but there were a few. I authenticated a whole bunch of them too. And I took great pains to make it right with every single person.
Only after Bueller broke the story and embarrassed. You were shamed into doing that.
Even if I authenticated one for them, I wound up paying a lot of money to make things right.
As you should have.
Trading off things that was, a good substitute, or however they wanted to do it.
That's a good segue. I was going to ask, because I know I've seen a lot of the COAs of the Champagne Room helmets that it was sold by SS Steel. So what you're saying is that if you sold a Champagne Room helmet during that period, you
look at that,
obviously
certificate of authenticity. Well, you couldn't even wipe your ass with that. It's not even 2-ply and soft enough. But anyway, let's keep going.
Tempted to make it right. Did you offer them their money back, or as you were saying, you offered them trades or things like that? Yeah.
Whatever we usually it was money first. I mean, I always do that.
It always,
because that's somebody's treasure. That's their hard work. And who am I to try to play? I mean, I've had this happen to me where you do a bad deal with someone and they're unscrupulous and they say, well,
he knows all about that.
Pick off of this shelf or something, and it's nothing but.
He knows all about that.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just a very raw deal, so I don't do that.
How many helmets do you think you sold over the period? Would it have been more than 20? Or less?
It was a dozen to
about
20.
About a dozen to 20.
Like
okay.
I think there were more than that, honestly. I think there was more than that. But anyway.
Did this question sort of rolls out of it? But did the Champagne decals sort of issue sort of hurt the other aspects of your business that you sold? Because you sold a lot of normal SS helmets as well, including perfectly fine ones.
Really.
So it almost sort of segregated itself into that one part of the hobby. So
it kind of speaks for itself. I mean, it was well exposed, but it was also well deservedly exposed. But the others, and I just want to mention this. Where was I going?
Where are you going?
The business, and this is not about me. It's about collectors. It's about protecting the hobby. But I did suffer. I suffered a lot. I went through. I mean, there were some fairly prickly remarks and things. But you know what? I got to say this. My dearest friends stuck by me. They knew me for who I am. It was a bitter pill to swallow.
Yeah, a bitter pill. Okay, fine. Okay, maybe you didn't know. Maybe you didn't know those were fakes to begin with. But the thing is, after Bueller clued you in, you weren't going. Even Bueller said in his interview, Hicks said, well, I'm not prepared to do that. Meaning, refund the money and do the right thing, and that just leaves a very bad taste in my mouth. But let's continue.
But once I got on track, things flowed very nicely. And look, I believe in God and so forth. And I'm
watch out! Ooh.
And I think that if you try your best, and
anytime you hear that, you know there's going to be trouble.
And it can be very good. So that was, it was okay.
I think that's quite a good answer. Could we speak about the XRF process, the laser
Yes.
process, when you talked
sure.
about that.
And why didn't he use that years before? Why did it take some guy walks in the hobby and has to school him and prove all his stuff was fake? Why?
How the sort of process went over those years. I know the sort of the laser sort of paint analysis. I remember when it came out, there was a lot of hype about it. It didn't. Saying it nicely, it didn't work out too well. How well sort of the concept went. But can you explain sort of what the idea was behind it and sort of the wheels sort of how it doesn't come to fruition?
No, I appreciate you bringing it up. It has become almost like talking about vaccines and things like that in the age of COVID.
There's no controversy. It comes down to this. Look, there's a breakdown of the chemical analysis of the paint on the helmet.
During the sort of the Yuan dynasty forward. So there was a company that made the guns for the museums. And what you did was you put it up against the object and shot it for a number of minutes. And and
they've developed stuff like that even for jewelry and that. It's really quite a revolutionary thing. And they've been around a few years. But why, if he was the top guru, why wasn't he? Why did Bueller have to school him and he wasn't on that himself? And even in this interview, he's talking about the background of that, so he knew about it.
A spectrograph, a machine that it was connected to, it would begin to put up increasing numbers, and the numbers were, you could see the ET, and it has this.
Yes, he's explained. We know all that.
These were composed of, and there was a lot of the technology.
Yes.
Fairly similar numbers, or not something.
YouTube every now and then, and they do heavily.
Ah, okay. Champagne room things.
Now here, he's getting into the meat and potatoes. We know all about those scanners, and he's telling us he's telling us now 10 years after the fact. But there's the book. There's the original book. This is the original book here too. This is a first printing of this book from '04, and son of a bitch. There's that goddamn son of a bitch Dolan's name here in my volume, as you can see. And you show there, and then he's out. And
who came before your time, and who's been quite prolific after the Champagne room.
Yes. Now Dolan, for those who don't remember, was the guy allegedly who made these fake Champagne decal helmets. Now, in 2010, when he put the second edition out, he took his name out, and you're going to hear him explain that, yes, he took his name out. So he knew this guy was no good. He knew it then, before he publicly acknowledged that these Champagne decal helmets were phony.
Escapade as well about sort of wildly faking helmets online and things like that. He was mentioned in the first book, as I mentioned, but he's removed from the second. So why don't you give a little sort of your understanding of Eric,
sure,
and where he sort of fits into the narrative?
Certainly. I'll start at the end first. For the second SS Steel, because a year or two prior to that, I had learned that he was exposed. There was kind of a before and after picture of a camo helmet. Before it wasn't camo, and then after it was camo.
Yes, I've seen this one.
And I took him right off the list. And as far as relationships and rumors and things like that, in the last 20 years, I've seen Eric maybe 3 times at shows, in passing. Hi, how are you doing? And so it's really not, there's no sort of huge relationship there. I won't say that I don't know him, but I will say I don't know where he is at all, nor how to contact him. I think he's kind of gone to ground.
Yeah, he's gone to ground after he ripped everybody off, the son of a bitch.
In sort of, most detective novels, there's that line that there's no such
Well, there's Military Review, like,
a man
he's
who
exposed
is,
this.
very talented in spray painting, a man who has done spray painting on other helmets and camo helmets. It wouldn't be too far to join the dots to say that Eric, could with his skills quite easily.
Yes, and he's never come publicly and refuted that.
Be too far of a leap.
I think you characterize that very well.
Without it is up to the whole point of this is it is up to people to make their own sort of, at the end, who do they want to say this is X, this is the person who probably thought them up. So that what this is meant to do is meant to sort of bring all the facts together, and then people can make sort of a sort of constructive. So no, I'd agree with you on that. The Doug B sort of episode, the big sort of piece that he brought out that sort of brought it all into light. How did you? Doug was a very sort of respected sort of collector and very respected person in many fields, and to see him sort of driven out of the hobby,
which is ridiculous.
How did you see this go down in terms of?
Yeah, great question. Sorry, I think I got the point pretty well.
Yeah, of course.
He and I were good friends, good colleagues, and had a professional relationship regarding helmets and collecting overall. He had become was quickly noted pretty much everywhere, and finally I got to meet him. We did a lot of helmet deals. He almost wound up with my whole collection, frankly. I mean, really, we did a lot of trading around and stuff, and so I would say we had a good, close relationship. And
would it be too far to say he was the preeminent sort of the head SS collector? Because I remember seeing the photos of the collection he used to have, which was just breathtaking.
There's no doubt that by the quantity and quality, no doubt. But there are a couple others of us who I think are preeminent
at the same sort of
in our niche, or maybe our length of service to the hobby. And
length of service to the hobby? Well, you were out to make money.
Guys out there that deserve note, but Doug was certainly he promoted positive things. He had a couple of forums, I think, that he virtually ran, but he did a good job. He was good at riding herd on stupidity factor and things like that, and he kept things pretty well organized, very well. And so I think, though, that and I mentioned this before, I was dismissive and somewhat arrogant in my attitude, and that didn't bode well when he came out with the champagne room thing, and I have to wear that.
Yes, you probably shit yourself when he mentioned that.
To take responsibility for being that way and causing myself trouble and perhaps causing trouble to others. Certainly, there's something, though, here I have to say, and that is intent. My intent was always good. My intent was never bad. Sometimes I'm a slow learner. And
a slow learner? He's supposed to be the preeminent SS helmet expert. And sometimes I'm a slow learner. And the thing is, okay, honestly, I'm thinking initially the boy was duped. But where I take issue with him is when he realized that these were fake, he didn't want to make good on it.
Sometimes you got to kind of kick me. But at the end of the day, I think he did. He probably had enough.
And that sort of probably pushed him more towards the door.
I think that's. I think you have a good way of characterizing the potential situation. Yeah. I think that the one thing I do want to mention about sort of Ken and Carl. Now, I'm not aware of their posts, honestly, because you may have noted, but if you look on the forums, I've been a member since forever, but very few posts.
Yeah, I understand.
I just don't go on. I just never have the time to devote. But I would say Ken and Carl may, if they needed a chance to explain themselves, I would say that's a great idea too. Because
I would agree with you.
Brush.
I would agree with your statement there. But it probably is. They probably do need to explain sort of what sort of did happen in terms of that. But Doug sadly hasn't been the first who's sort of been driven out of the hobby, and sadly won't be the last.
Driven out of the hobby? That's a joke.
People just will fight tooth and nail. There was always Joe Ribbett, who wrote all the party badge books. His style was quite abrasive, and that sort of led him to be thrown out by the establishment.
Thrown out establishment.
With the older sort of guards.
Who are these people? Who the hell are they? if you've got the money, you could go in there and you could collect and do whatever you wanted. These people turning their noses up at you, I'd say the hell with them. I wouldn't buy their stuff anyway, because it could end up being fake. You know, what I'm finding out in Military Review, I've learned from his videos, is there's a lot of fakery going on, even with these so-called reputable, established dealer type fellas. And the hell with them. You know, I would just do what I do, and you know, if I want to collect Nazi stuff, I will buy the Nazi stuff. I'll do whatever I want. If I want to, you know, buy a place down in Boca Raton, and there's somebody that doesn't want me to have a place in Boca Raton, well, I'm going to buy it anyway. But anyway, let's continue with the program.
Whitman's, those sort of collectors sort of had him sort of pushed out the door. But I see what you mean. Coming up to sort of one of our last questions. Do you think what happened with the champagne decal showed sort of the eminent sort of strength of the collecting sort of group as a group, you know, as a hobby? Do you think that it showed that people in this sort of area of interest can sort of come together and over a long period of time, be it, and sort of work towards a common goal, or sort of strengthen the hobby in terms of integrity?
I do a lot. I think that's
oh,
a great,
yes, I'm
analogy.
sure he does.
I also think that there needs to be a point, though, that people reach where it's finished. It's, you know, what's good enough is good enough. And the what I saw was a lot of continued just what's the right word, invective and innuendo and things like that.
Innuendo?
Regardless of who it was against or for, that I thought was excessive. So I believe...
Excessive? If I lost some money, I'm one of the biggest crybabies there is. And he say, oh, it's excessive.
Super good, super sharp collectors. I think that Doug was of the intellect level where he had the means to bring a lot of thought processes together to make his point, whereas a lot of folks may not have connected dots like that. But there's a lot to every story, obviously, and you and I, you know, can cover only so much.
Well, this is pretty clear cut to me.
I think your point about the hobby and the strength of it is exceptional. That's a very good point, and you know, God bless the guys and ladies if there are many out there doing it. Yeah, well, let's say the ladies who support the guys, because
I think that's a good statement. Just in closing, champagne decals still do turn up, but they do get they're characterized well now if they're being sold by most people. They're the most notable notable one. I saw one on IMA the other day, which was just being sold as a regular helmet with, you know.
Well, that's the thing I want to mention. There's these big websites like this IMA site, and they sell a lot of phony stuff and overpriced original stuff. And frankly, I wouldn't buy anything from them, and because you know what, you don't know, you really don't know what you're getting. And the other thing too is, you have these phonies out there start to circulate, and then before you know it, you know, somebody could pass away and their children sell the item as an original, or they decide they're going to sell it and they misrepresent it. So, you know, it's just always a bad thing when you have those fakes sitting around.
The notion that a champagne decal, so they'll still be out there. This is the thing. Obviously, these are real helmets, and the decals are still out there. Do you think sort of the problem going forward is that you know, how do they now fit into the hobby? Are they a modified original helmet, or are they a fake overall? Like how do you characterize?
They're a counterfeit classic.
Because this is the problem. They're still going to.
When I say counterfeit classic, you're taking an original item and you're modifying it to be like, for instance, I talked about in the old car hobby. I knew a fella. He was buying these 1929 Lincolns. And he would get the sedans and he'd convert them into touring cars, which are worth much more money. It's an original 1929 Lincoln, but it's a counterfeit classic in that they converted it into a convertible. Or, you could take a Pontiac Firebird and turn it into a special edition Trans Am. It's still an original item, but it's been counterfeited to be a more desirable original item. So the basis, it's real, but yet it's a fake.
Yeah, out there.
I think the way you mentioned it first is probably, I mean, if somebody has one or someone picks one up and decides they want to sell it, if they arm themselves with the knowledge and say, look, it appears to me to be an original helmet, it's not messed with, the pins are tight, whatever, but it has this shield on it, you have to be aware that that's probably not real or not real, as the case, and so pay the price to the helmet, I guess would be
sort of the. Look, Kelly, I've really enjoyed this. I think you've been incredibly honest.
I too, Mike.
I think you've been incredibly honest. It's a hard one,
I don't think so. I think that Military Review, a nice boy, but I would have gone over the chronology. Of when he started buying these helmets back and acknowledging that these were fake. I think it will be shown he only did that after Bueller. Not when he told him, but only when Bueller revealed the story publicly. It's only time this here Hicks decided he was gonna have to salvage something of his reputation. He was gonna have to buy these back, pony up the money, and I'm sure it was expensive.
When we get to the end, I won't draw any conclusions. I think it's fairly obvious from my standpoint who I think the creator of the actual decal is. I think most people have a similar view, but I think it's very interesting, and just like happened with the IMA interview, it's very interesting to hear the person who's been in the spotlight's perspective.
Yes, but IMA had that fake Jimmy Stewart hat, and I just feel they didn't get the bad PR they should have. They tried to downplay what I've said on this here program. But anyway, let's continue.
Because I think it's very admirable, first of all, that you decided to talk. I think it's great that you went about making sure a right was wronged with making sure the champagne wound helmets that you sold were sort of returned, and all your comments that you've given about Eric, Doug, how you see the hobby has been very valuable. So I thank you for your time, Kelly. It's been wonderful.
Well, thank you, Mike. A pleasure for me, for sure.
Yeah, try and salvage your reputation.
Have some email exchanges with you.
No, of course.
You're an excellent guy. I appreciate what you're doing.
Oh, gee whiz.
Kelly, thank you for coming back again, albeit briefly. I'm glad that you took the time to come back, and it's always appreciated.
Oh, thank you, Mike. It's good to be here, and this is meant from my side to conclude my remarks that I look forward to you posting in their entirety, recording earlier last week, and I just wanted to say that I took a listen of the podcast with Doug, and I think that he pointed out a lot of things that when you listen to my remarks, when the viewers, as it were, listen to my remarks, that I'm taking that on board, and I'm accepting the mistakes that I made and so forth. But I just want to make very clear that in the latter part of his presentation, where he portrayed a champagne room scam consisting of Dolan and Ken Nowarwitz and myself as the hapless for these things, that could not be farther from the truth. I cannot prove, nor do I care about Eric Dolan. Actually, none of what Doug said can be proven. But
but you know what? They basically, Bueller was saying he was a patsy, at least initially, and that's his theory. That's his theory about it. And if Hicks doesn't like it, well, he could sue Bueller for defamation, slander. But the thing is that I believe Bueller's theory and his narrative of the facts, and we'll let Hicks finish it up here.
I can say this. Ken has, for years and years, consistently resisted the notion of champagne ruins. I was as I mentioned in my earlier remarks, I was in denial. I was extremely proud of the accomplishment of pegging the Decal types.
Yes, but you had no scientific basis for that. You had no analysis of the paint, the serial number, the lot numbers on those helmets. There were different numbers on their lot numbers, and the inconsistencies of that, even without a chemical analysis, should have told you that.
To the helmet makers, NS certainly had its place in that, so I wasn't open to listening to a few of my friends who did dissent.
He admits that.
Of how they felt.
The emperor has no clothes.
So that's my bad, but I made it good, and as you will.
Only after you were embarrassed.
That were just posted. I've made that right with everyone who I ever authenticated one for or ever sold one to, and it's not all that many.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing. All right, you paid off some of the people that bought the helmets or had them authenticated, but my question is this: what about all the poor bastards like myself that bought your goddamn books? You didn't offer us anything. No refunds, no new updated edition free of charge that you point out which of the phonies. Hell, you haven't even. You know what, Hicks? Here's an open invitation call from the old colonel himself. Why don't you go through the goddamn books and tell us which one of these here helmets is fake and which are real? So we know, because otherwise we're going to read your goddamn books and we're going to think, gee whiz, which one is real and which one's fake? We don't know. Son of a bitch, he didn't offer a nickel to us. Nothing. But anyway, there's another part of my offer too I would make to Hicks is, if you don't want to give us a refund, then how about this? How about that everybody that is going to the shows there in Louisville, that we all meet up in the main aisle of the show, and what we do is this: for every one of us that brings a book, they can take one whap at your backside with this here paddle that I have here, and or if you want, I'll tell you what, I'm a fair fella. If you want, I can use my cane. I'll lend it to other individuals who, if you want. I'm not advocating, anybody to whap you, though. If you wanted to make it right and you didn't want to refund our money or give us an updated version of the book, that you let us, take a big whap at your backside with this here paddle or my cane. And, it'll be all voluntary. I'll have you sign a release. And, myself, I'd get a good running start on the bow and boom! I'd be right into him. For every book that this son of a bitch wrote and I bought, he had the 2 editions, but I think he did also a small paperback that they showed, that black covered one with the helmets on. So I think there's 3 books of his I bought. But anyway, we'll continue here. Let's continue his remarks.
It's not some huge conspiracy. I'm just telling you that the facts are completely different. There's no such cabal. I think that
not willingly.
Ken was abhorrent and shocking. And,
I don't think so.
I would not support that whatsoever. I think that Ken never would do anything like that. He's who he is.
Well, that's not what Bueller says.
Isn't that right? So there was no scam cabal. I actually think that using the word scam about champagne runes is a bit of a heated word itself.
Oh, I don't think so. That's like saying embezzlement. It should be called a misappropriation of funds or an unauthorized transfer of funds. Scam, it was a scam. Somebody made it up to make money. Whether you were duped or not, Hicks, that's up for debate. But you trying to pretend that you're innocent and there was no cabal and this and that. Well, I think there was a cabal. I think that this boy was running those Doolin, Doolin was making them, and they were putting, Bueller told the story in his interview about the auction that this fella had somebody call and said that he took some big collector from up there in Canada, and you know, him still protecting this guy really leaves a very bad taste in my mouth. You know, I actually have more respect for him if he disassociated himself, but instead he attacks Bueller.
In most contexts, it was just a big, sad mistake, but the perpetrator of it, whoever that actually is, if we can prove it, you know, because of Dolan being the caught faking the camos, I think that a lot of fingers go to him, so, you know, understandable. But that element of that sort of story was just very salacious and very untrue.
Oh, I don't think so at all. Salacious and untrue. Well, then sue. Then sue him. I don't think so at all. And you know, this was put out last year, and Hicks hasn't done anything. Why? Because he knows it's true. He knows he can't prove otherwise. And Bueller, he came up with a
Thank you very much, Kelly. And the point of these videos, as Kelly pointed out, the point of these videos is for people to draw their own conclusions.
I have drawn my own conclusions.
You've heard Kelly's side in the entirety now, so now it's up to you to understand all the facts that both have given without sort of pointing blame at anyone from my side. So, but Kelly, it's been really good to have you come back again and obviously share your thoughts after the second part, and I greatly appreciate your effort to speak with me on this subject.
Yeah, thank you, Mike, and I appreciate your forbearance on the impulsiveness of my remarks, but I feel very passionately about the subject, and
so do I.
I'm able to contribute well, and thank you.
Well, guys, that's it. That's the end of part 3 of the Champagne series. There's no more sort of debate episodes. If you tune in about a week and a half's time, episode 4 is more or less on just the hobby in itself, more than anything. So if you'd like to listen to sort of Doug's views on the hobby, why he left it, and sort of how the hobby's changed over the last 20 years, that's what that's going to be about. So you've had all the information put on the table, so it is now up to you as a viewer, listening to both sides, to make your call on who.
Well, I have made my call.
The Champagne Decal, you know, who you think it affects, what your views are on it. Who do you think the architect is? I think everyone's fairly clear on who that is, but it's up to you now to make your informed decision. As I said, I'm not a journalist. The thing is just to bring all the facts together. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this very big piece of work. I'm looking forward to a quick break after this, but thanks again for your patience.
Anyway,
listenership and,
so he concluded his interview, but the thing is, Doug Bueller was supposed to be in his part 4, and Bueller did not make any remarks. It's unfortunate. I would have loved to have heard Bueller's rebuttal of what this Hicks character said. My opinion is that maybe Hicks wasn't in on it initially, but later I think he, without even saying to anybody, I think he realized that, yeah, that he had been had. But where I take issue is he continued on, and he did not make good on these until Bueller had released the story publicly. I think he should have did a joint effort with Doug Bueller on this, and he refused. In my opinion, is he only made good on those to salvage something of his reputation and his business, because he thought no matter how bad it would be, buying these helmets back, if he didn't, he would have absolutely zero credibility, and he couldn't sell other items. And that's my opinion. And for him to make his last minute slap in the face at Bueller saying it's salacious, it's not true, well, I just don't buy that. And that I've been wanting to do this video a long time. And hey, Hicks, my offer's there. You either give me my money back for each book I can produce, or you give me an updated version of the book that points out the fakes, or you let me and my other fellow people that were defrauded by you and your publications, we get a chance. You sign a waiver, and each of us gets to whack you with with the paddle, you know, from the fraternity days there. Anyway, this is Colonel Braxton Beauregard Burlique the Fifth, adventurer, treasure hunter, swashbuckler extraordinaire, signing off.